Clark has a new State Farm commercial, and we have major news coming out of the WNBA about this 2026 negotiations.
State Farm has just released a brand new commercial starring Caitlyn Clark next to the NBA icon Chris Paul, and just as you'd expect, it's completely taking over the internet. Now, the ad itself is barely 30 seconds long, but the online chatter about it, that's going to last a whole lot longer. At the same time, some major news is surfacing around the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, which really proves the league has been fudging some of those salary numbers. We're about to get into every piece of this, but before we get into the details, I have to throw this out there for you. What is the real reason some people absolutely cannot handle seeing Caitlyn Clark find success, whether it's on the basketball court or off of it? Is it just pure jealousy, or is there something else going on? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Okay, let's dive into what's been happening, because Caitlyn Clark is once again taking up prime real estate inside a lot of people's minds. It's like home, auto, State Farm agents are available to answer what you need. Chris, hey Chris, are you hanging it up?
Want to help with this question?
Allow me to assist.
Dad, are you retiring? Oh, puppy. What's your name, little guy?
Tell me, you retiring?
Oh,
it's mascot Jake.
So everyone says you're going to retire. Is it true? You can tell me.
is this metal?
Are you going to retire?
About a day ago, State Farm unveiled its latest ad campaign that features Chris Paul. Now, you have to remember, Chris Paul has been making commercials for State Farm going all the way back to 2008. That's nearly 17 years of seeing him with Jake from State Farm and his make-believe twin, Cliff Paul. The guy is practically the face of the company at this stage. But here is the interesting part. This new spot wasn't truly focused on Chris Paul. It was all about him possibly retiring. The entire setup is that everybody is asking Chris Paul if his basketball career is over. He's turning 40. He just inked a one-year contract for $3.6 million with the Clippers. So naturally, people are wondering if this is his final season. So in the ad, Jake, the company's mascot, is trying to field all these questions. Even Chris Paul's own son asks him if he is quitting. And then guess who pops up? None other than Caitlyn Clark. She's staring right at Chris Paul, almost grilling him on whether he is actually finished playing. She asks him directly, "Is this for real? Are you retiring? You can let me know." The entire exchange is genuinely funny. Clark has this really playful vibe as she's pushing him for answers like they're old pals. And the response online, people went completely ballistic. One person on X wrote that nobody could fathom their love for Caitlyn Clark's State Farm ads, written in all capital letters. That's the kind of intense excitement this is generating. Somebody else posted about the new commercial and Caitlyn's appearance, adding that nobody really cares about Chris Paul's retirement since many assumed he already had. That might be a bit rough on CP3, but you see the larger idea. The main attraction of this Chris Paul ad wasn't even him, it was Caitlyn Clark appearing on screen for maybe 10 seconds. Now, it is important to place this in a broader context, because this is hardly Caitlyn's first collaboration with State Farm. Not by a long shot. She inked a deal with them way back in October of 2023, which made her the very first college athlete the brand ever added to its roster of sports stars. Just let that sink in for a moment. State Farm already had Patrick Mahomes and Chris Paul, huge names from the NFL and NBA, and yet they chose to add a female college basketball player to that exclusive group. Her initial ads began airing in November 2023. One featured Caitlyn with the reporter Jenny Taft inside a coffee shop, where someone exclaims they need a break, and all of a sudden Caitlyn is right there for a Big 10 game break. In a different ad, a couple says shoot after their car hits a pole, and Caitlyn magically materializes from nowhere, ready to shoot a basketball, with Jimmy Butler and Reggie Miller also in that spot. After someone says, "I need a break," the ad cuts to time for a Big 10 game break, with Jenny Taft saying, "I'm here with Hawkeye Caitlyn Clark." In another, a customer says, "I just need a little help," and explains how life is changing fast, and the agent says, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Then earlier this year, the company rolled out what could be their most effective Caitlyn commercial so far, the From the Logo campaign. The concept is built entirely around her famous ability to drain three-pointers from the center court logo. In that ad, Caitlyn mentions that her life would be simpler if she could handle everything from the logo. Then you see Jake from State Farm painting their logo all over her house, so she can do things like open pickle jars and do her laundry just by standing on it. It's a genuinely smart piece of advertising. Caitlyn Clark from way downtown, you know the deal.
You know, life would be easier if I could do everything from the logo.
Allow me.
The ad featured the tagline State Farm with the assist, and it was in heavy rotation during the NBA playoffs and all through the WNBA season. So now, with this latest Chris Paul retirement spot, State Farm is making it crystal clear that Caitlyn Clark is a fundamental part of their entire marketing plan. She is showing up next to a 21-year NBA veteran who has been a partner with the company since 2008. That fact alone should tell you exactly how much value they place on her. But this is the point where things start getting really interesting, because at the same time, Caitlyn is out there securing these huge endorsement deals and being featured in commercials with basketball legends. A separate discussion is brewing about whether WNBA players are being compensated fairly for their talent. And that conversation leads us directly to the CBA negotiations.
Has broken the internet. I'm kind of missed reporting on it yesterday, so we're gonna do a little catch-up time here, man. So it's that the WNBA offered a $1.1 million max, super max is not what it seems, sources tell Front Office Sports. So from my understanding, I told them to immediately sign this. Now that's before I read this article. Now I read a little bit of it. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. We're gonna go over a majority of it right here in this video. But supposedly there is like clause in this CBA negotiation. Basically, they have to meet certain criteria to make this $1.1 million.
If you haven't been following,
if you have been keeping up with this story, here is the short summary. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement with its players' union is on the verge of expiring. The initial cutoff date was October 31st, but they pushed it back to November 30th, which is just over a week away. A few days ago, it was reported that the WNBA presented the players with a new offer that included a maximum salary over $1.1 million. The headlines everywhere started screaming about how WNBA players could finally break the $1 million mark and how this represented a pivotal moment for the entire league. And I'll be totally upfront with you, when I saw that number initially, my reaction was the same as everyone else's. Just sign the deal. That figure is 4 times larger than the current Supermax contract. It's an enormous pay raise. What could possibly be the holdup? But then, the complete picture started to emerge, and it became clear the WNBA was using some very creative accounting. According to Front Office Sports, several sources who are close to the negotiations confirmed that those figures are incredibly misleading. Here is what is really going on. That $1.1 million amount is not a base pay. It's a combination of base salary plus any potential revenue sharing plus performance bonuses. Under the league's current proposal, not a single player could sign a contract in 2026 for a base salary of $1.1 million. The actual base Supermax is somewhere in the range of $800,000 to quoted at $150,000. Now that is still a massive improvement over the current $249,000 Supermax, but it is a far cry from $1.1 million. So how would a player even reach that advertised number? First, you'd have to secure that $800K to $150K base contract. Next, your team would have to win the WNBA championship, which adds another $20,000. If you're the runner-up, you get $7,000. Winning MVP gets you $15,000. Making the All-WNBA first team is another $10,000, while the second team is $5,000. An All-Star appearance is worth $2,500, and being the All-Star MVP adds another $5,000. On top of all that, You have to achieve whatever revenue sharing goals are set. And by the way, the existing CBA already has revenue sharing incentives. Do you want to guess how many times those targets have actually been met since that deal was signed? 0. Not a single time. The players are not fools. They understand what's happening. Sophie Cunningham, who is a veteran guard, told Front Office Sports that it sounds great and that a huge number was dangled in front of them, but she questioned what happens as the business keeps growing. The union's official reaction to the league's offer was even more blunt. They called it lipstick on a pig. Essentially, the players are demanding a system where their compensation is directly linked to a specific percentage of the league's revenue. This is the model used in the NBA, where the players receive around 50% of all basketball-related income. In the WNBA, the players reportedly get only about 9% of the league's revenue. 9%. This is happening while the league is seeing historic viewership and attendance numbers, while expansion franchises are being sold for hundreds of millions, and while sponsors are clamoring to associate their brands with the players. Speaking of which, Caitlyn Clark's base salary for next season is less than $86,000. She is arguably the most significant driver of interest in the WNBA in its entire history. She sells out arenas, pulls in gigantic television audiences, and has endorsement contracts with Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, and many other top-tier brands. Yet her WNBA contract pays her $86,000. Minnesota Lynx star Nafisa Collier has been very outspoken on this topic, pointing out that players like Caitlyn are unable to earn what they are actually worth to the league. Now the league's leadership keeps saying they want to raise player pay. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has discussed transformational deals, but there's a major disconnect on what transformational really means. The players want guaranteed percentages, while the league is offering uncapped revenue sharing, which sounds appealing until you learn the caps are almost never hit anyway. In the meantime, other basketball leagues are emerging to take advantage of this conflict. Unrivaled had its inaugural season earlier this year, which is the 3-on-3 league created by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier that ran from January to March, giving players another way to make money during the off-season. Now there's also Project B, which just announced it will launch in November of 2026. This league is a wild concept, structured as an international circuit that spans Europe and Asia, much like how Formula One or LEV Golf are set up. WNDPA President Nneka Ogwumike is one of the first big names to sign on, along with Alyssa Thomas, John Keller-Jones, and Jewel Lloyd. The reported salaries for Project B are in the 7-figure range, potentially more than what the WNBA is even offering. So what happens if the WNBA fails to secure a new agreement? Everything grinds to a halt. The expansion drafts for the new teams in Toronto and Portland can't move forward. Free agency stops. The 2026 draft gets put on hold. Neither side wants a work stoppage, as that would be a disaster for everyone, especially now that the league is finally getting some mainstream traction. But the players have been very clear that they will not agree to a deal that leaves them behind, while the business continues to explode. And the biggest irony in all of this is Caitlyn Clark. She's out there as the face of State Farm commercials, and has an 8-year, $28 million contract with Nike, the largest shoe deal in the history of women's basketball. She has a signature shoe on the way and is earning millions away from the court. But her actual WNBA paycheck, it's practically nothing compared to the value she generates. The haters, by the way, love to bring this up. They enjoy pointing out that Caitlyn receives all this media attention and these endorsements, claiming it's not fair to the other players. But they are missing the entire point. Caitlyn is not the one who created this system. She is just successfully navigating it. If the WNBA compensated players based on the actual value they bring, Caitlyn would be earning significantly more money. So would A'ja Wilson. So would Breanna Stewart, and so would many other players.
The issue is not that Caitlyn has endorsement deals. The issue is that the league's pay structure has failed to evolve with its own growth. And speaking of the haters, let's touch on them for a minute. Lexi Hull, who is Caitlyn's teammate on The Fever, did an interview with Glamour magazine not long ago, where she said the quiet part out loud. She stated that there is a degree of jealousy directed at The Fever simply because of all the media coverage and the number of fans who have come out to support them ever since Caitlyn arrived. She mentioned hearing other teams and players talking about the fever in their own locker rooms. Every single time they step into an arena, there's a target on their backs. Because every team wants to be the one that takes down the squad that made the WNBA appointment television. And frankly, that aligns with everything we have witnessed. Just consider how Caitlyn has been treated since she came into the national spotlight. Cheryl Swoops tried to diminish her scoring records with false information. Diana Taurasi warned her about how difficult the WNBA would be. Breanna Stewart claimed she needed to win a championship before being considered one of the all-time greats. Some of the most prominent figures in women's basketball couldn't just praise what she was accomplishing for the sport. All the while, Caitlyn has been consistently respectful of the players who paved the way for her, constantly giving them credit for the foundation they built. She never criticizes other players, she just plays the game and handles her own business. The critics just keep changing the criteria for success. At first, it was that she couldn't perform at the WNBA level. Then after she won Rookie of the Year and shattered records, it shifted to something else. Now, anytime she achieves something off the court, like being in a State Farm commercial, certain people just can't stand it. One fan articulated it perfectly online, saying that these WNBA fans are the most jealous and foolish fans ever, and that something like this has never happened in the NBA, which just proves how great Caitlyn is because she is constantly on their minds. And listen, I'm not suggesting that all criticism of Caitlyn is wrong. No athlete is beyond critique, but there is a clear line between valid basketball commentary and people who simply want to watch her fail because her success makes them uncomfortable. The State Farm ad is a prime illustration of this. It's a fun, harmless 30-second spot about Chris Paul's retirement, where Caitlyn appears for maybe 10 seconds, and yet that's enough to throw people into a complete meltdown. What's truly bizarre is that some of the same people who criticize Caitlyn will then complain that women's basketball doesn't receive enough media coverage or endorsement opportunities. But when a women's basketball player actually secures that attention and those major deals, it suddenly becomes a huge problem. It just doesn't make any sense. The truth is that Caitlyn Clark is doing precisely what she should be doing. She's playing incredible basketball, she's expanding the game's reach, and she's capitalizing on her own marketability by partnering with major companies who recognize the value in being associated with her. State Farm gets it, Nike gets it, Gatorade gets it, and every other brand that has signed her gets it. The WNBA needs to get it too, and they should be creating a salary system that truly reflects the value that players like Caitlyn bring to their league. Because as it stands, you have a scenario where a player can generate hundreds of millions of dollars in value for the league, but still earn a base salary of less than $100,000. That model is not sustainable, it is not fair, and the players are fully aware of it. That is why these CBA negotiations are so heated, and it's why the union is not just rolling over for the first offer that looks good on the surface. They have been let down before with revenue sharing goals that are never reached, and they are not going to be fooled again. There are 8 days left until the deadline, so we will have to see what happens. But for now, Caitlyn is just out here thriving, making commercials with NBA legends, building her brand and absolutely making certain people lose their minds just by her very existence. Living rent-free, all day, every day. That is where we are right now. Caitlyn Clark is dominating off the court, while the WNBA is trying to solve how to properly compensate its athletes. The haters are still going to hate, the negotiations are still in progress, and we are going to continue to cover every single update as it unfolds. If you got some value from this breakdown, go ahead and smash that like button, and make sure you subscribe. Your support is everything to us.